without further ado, I'd like to introduce to the stage pro-life analyst, Mrs. Carrie Twoterm.
Thank you all for being here. My name is Carrie Twoterm, and thank you. And I am pro-life analyst. Along with my mother, I have protested at 34 pro-abortion rallies, 13 pro-abortion clinics, and 1 probation hearing. That was because of a typo. I would like to present to you tonight on the subject of where babies come from. And where they go when they die. We will also delve briefly into who to blame for this situation. Before we get started, I would like to warn you that this presentation will contain the subject matter of a graphic and mature nature. So if this is something that might bother you, you might want to prepare to be bothered. So our first question we answered is, where do babies come from? This is a subject of great debate. I would like to assure you, before we go on, that I am fully capable of speaking on this subject. My mother was devoted to birth. She homeschooled me, of course. We met on the trimester system, and we devoted 2 full trimesters to the subject of birth before stopping abruptly. So, I'm not pushing the buttons right. So this is a tough question. Where do babies come from? How are babies made? It is one question, but there are many answers. Truly, the preferred method, of course, the traditional method, happens when a man and a woman fall in love and find a deep connection with each other. And after much contemplation and devotion to each other, decide to engage in the holy act of matrimony. It's very holy. At this point, along with the support of their family and their church, the couple can create a child or a small army. However, this idyllic situation is not always what happens. We understand that. There are other methods for babies to be made. The first, of course, is science. Occasionally, scientists take their clumsy, unskilled hands to the work of the Lord. There are predictably mixed results. I believe she's getting a sitcom soon. Another method, some people may know about this already, occasionally 2 people will decide to have sexual intercourse before they are married. And this is an important decision. Sometimes this also leads to babies and single mothers. This is acceptable. My mother once told me that people have premarital sex because they come from families with weak moral codes, with parents who do not have enough time to spend with their children. So it is very good that we live in such a Christian nation today. There are other miscellaneous methods to make a baby. One is adoption. Babies can be adopted from home or from other countries where they have made too many babies, or not enough famous people to care for them. This sometimes happens in the global south. Other methods include surrogacy. Babies can come from surrogates. However, this has been seen by some as an act of desperation, at least by 78% of the readers on RottenTomatoes.com. Sometimes babies come from strange men with unsettling hobbies. You must be aware of them. And every once in a while, babies are stolen from train yards by storks. I believe this fuels some kind of black market. But what is known to us, wherever else they may come from, this much is clear, that babies come from eggs. Sometimes they don't make it out. This is an important point. This is a critical point, and it leads us to our next question. It is an important question. It is a sub-question of our first question. There are many questions, but it is maybe important, maybe the most important. Good heavens, nonetheless. It's that important. When does life begin? This is a very important question, and there are many answers. There are many answers. The pro-choice group in this country would like you to believe that life begins at birth. They posit, they believe very firmly that this is not a baby. But this absolutely is. The other side of the debate says that life begins at conception. They posit that this is not a baby, but this absolutely is. Clearly both sides have some logical failings. But not to worry, other voices have been included into the mix. Recently, in Arizona, a law was passed by the state legislature concerning abortion rights that states that women's, the time of pregnancy is calculated from a woman's last menstrual period and not from actual conception. I don't want to delve too deeply into this, but if you would like to hear more about my thoughts, you are welcome to tune into my monthly podcast called Never Not Pregnant. I personally feel that one of the most glaring omissions in the entire debate is the words of one of the most important people ever, Jesus Christ himself. Jesus had a lot to say on the subject of life and death. For example, oh heavens, he had this to say, I died, and behold, I am alive forevermore, and I have the keys of death and Hades. That is from Revelation 1:18. In other words, for Jesus, life begins at death. I feel this may change the debate somewhat. It is a subject still left to be discovered. But it does conveniently segue us into our next question, which is, where do babies go when they die? There are, again, many have a lot of opinions on the subject. again, there are many answers, many answers to this question. For example, sometimes dead babies are taken home by their parents and spoken with and introduced to their siblings and discussed and spent time with. This only happens, however, on the very fringes of American society. You can source this on the internet, friends. But there are other places that sometimes babies are turned into useful consumer goods after they die, such as skin cream, such as Neocutis, vaccines, energy supplements, and flavor enhancers. This falls under ordinary business operations. This is from the Washington Times. In addition to this, sometimes babies are harvested for their stem cells. This is used for many scientific purposes, primarily for the cloning of organs, and baby glands, and harpsichords, and other important instruments. Sometimes dead babies become zombies. Sometimes. And finally, very few enjoy a lucrative post-mortem career in modeling. Some people are very lucky, my friends. Some people are very lucky. But obviously, this only answers the question of where do babies' bodies go after death? What happens to the rest of the baby? Again, there are some different answers. One controversial theory posits that baby souls actually are trapped, at least a few of them, in dead baby jokes themselves. This problem has only increased exponentially with the internet. The number of dead babies and dead baby jokes has increased rapidly over the past few years, ironically largely on angel fire sites. Largely. But by and large, most authorities on the subject agree that when they die, babies do not go to heaven or to hell, and instead go to an in-between place that is called limbo. Now, some people have imagined limbo to be a dark and isolating place with over 40 hours of gameplay. However, given the sheer volume of dead babies that have come into existence as of late, it is very likely that the population density of limbo is much greater than that. And also Ann Geddes may live there as well. So we need to wrap this up. There are more dead babies than there have ever been in human history, which is astounding considering that the history is built on dead babies. But there are a few culprits clearly to blame at this juncture. First of all, to blame for dead babies is scientists, specifically. The relentless and amoral march of science to destroy God has fundamentally undermined our entire culture. Thank you, Michael, for having me tonight. I'm happy to be here, Chad. Other culprits include women. All of them. Even her. God has clearly demonstrated to us that although He does not need a man to make a baby, He does need a woman. So without babies, there would be no dead babies. We have some blame to lay upon ourselves. Americans, totally to blame for the rash of dead babies and for this horrible graphic. Truly, America is a culture of death, and approximately 98% of the $3.5 billion federal budget has been spent directly funding Planned Parenthood clinics and other pro-abortion facilities. The remaining 1 to 2% of funds that have been spent on defense funding in other countries may also have contributed to a dead baby or two. So, anytime you pay your taxes or buy an ice cream cone, you are helping. Other people to blame include gay people and other homosexuals. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure how. Something is amiss. And finally, you. Yes, you. And you as well. Anybody who is in this room right now, whether or not you have directly participated in the killing of a baby, is enjoying a Chad Chat right now. And Chad is here to promote the advancement of science, and as we discussed earlier, science is where dead babies come from. So, you should remember that every time you laugh tonight, it is another tiny nail in another tiny coffin. So obviously, I would like to end with a message of hope. There are many dead babies, many of them, and this is largely your fault. But you should not despair, because think about it. Every dead baby is a baby that will never grow up to be an abortion doctor. Or a politician, or a homosexual, or a person that makes inappropriate PowerPoints. And truly, maybe we should remember the words of Jesus. Maybe it's not that bad a thing to be a dead baby. And if we cannot trust Jesus, then we can certainly trust the words of Billy Joel, who told us that indeed only the good die young. If this is true, my friends, and I think we can believe that it is, then I think that dead babies are the best people on earth. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Carrie Twoterm, ladies and gentlemen.